Hi, this is Kumar Singh from Designed Analytics LLC, and you're watching another episode of Maverick Mondays. Well, as promised, I think it was last Monday that I promised that this episode of Maverick Mondays is going to be focused on how we can leverage AI to take nudge theory, right? Or the nudging in the context of sales and marketing to a whole new level, right? What is nudge theory, how it's leveraged in sales and marketing is something that I actually shared this afternoon. So you can refer to this post on LinkedIn, right? So as I mentioned, there are like 7 broad types of nudging, right, that we use. And the one where we can make a significant impact leveraging AI is the personalization one. And that is the part where we can actually leverage AI and tailor nudging to the specific nuances of a user. So if you go through some of the other types given here or shared in that post, they are more like generic. They still are kind of relevant. They're still kind of tailor-made, as in you are trying to save something in the cart, so you have the intention to buy it, but you are not sure when, or you want to wait, and then you get the nudge, as you know, only 2 left in stock, as an example. Though in these cases I always think, hey, 2 left in stock, that's your problem, whatever e-commerce site I'm using, right? Why do you only have 2 in stock anyway? So that's a joke and a bad one. But yeah, coming back to our problem, what we want to do is basically personalize the experience, the nudging experience, right? The 7th category. We want to understand how AI can help with that, and we will try to understand that through an example, right? As always, we will not go through specific algorithms. I shared in the last episode some examples, as in like there is so much work out there for any of these problem types that you can easily like pick a portfolio of work and tailor and tweak it, and sometimes weave pieces together to create a solution. So technology will never be a constraint, right? So with that background, before we get into the example, let's try to understand what's the most critical piece that you need to analyze even before you build the solution. And that's the reason I say that sometimes technology itself is not a major constraint in a solution, other aspects are, right? In this case, we first need to understand the cost benefit analysis, because the kind of personalization that we need to do, right, is going to be real time, unlike some of the other personalizations that we do in campaign and offer management. This is going to be real time. So the kind of infrastructure that you need to build is going to be massive. The kind of capabilities, right, that you will need to build. Primarily, the support aspect of that will be the hardware that you need to support real-time real-time nudging across millions of users is going to be huge. So the first critical aspect that you need to do is to understand, is it worth it, as in like do a cost benefit analysis of the same, right? And for that, you will have to kind of selectively run pilots, pick segments of users and run the pilots on them to gain an understanding of the benefits, and then extrapolate that to your user base. In reality, I think this kind of real-time nudging should only be used for high ticket items, right? So if it's a laptop, right, high ticket, high margin items, right, expensive items, somebody is buying a $4,000 laptop or something like that, right? So then they need to be nudged, right, because there is a margin involved, there's money to be made. And then if you take that approach, and that's, like I said, it's not the only approach, but if you take that approach, it kind of cuts down the cost as well, right? So first key thing before we get into the use case, before we start exploring how a solution might work, will the cost justify the benefits? Second aspect to look, using the example that I just gave, can you kind of focus this kind of real-time personalization of nudging to a specific user group, right? Maybe high ticket items. So that's one aspect that we need to analyze before we get into the solution. The second aspect, right, is to understand the importance of on-device data. The importance of on-device data for making something like this happen. And that importance will become more clear as we go through the use case here. Right? So let's say you are trying to buy a laptop online, right? An expensive laptop. Now, people who are generally very particular, say you are a gamer, particular about how your laptop should be configured. There are gaming laptops, you are browsing them, you are not sure, right, if any of those are kind of within the realm of what you want. So you want to basically do your own research across many different portals. But say, for example, you have a one specific e-commerce site that you want to buy that laptop on. So you know that they are going to give you the maximum discount, or you have some membership, something like that. But you want to do your research. So you will probably start days before you actually make a purchase. You will probably start days before that. You will do a lot of browsing. You will probably download documents, right? Have conversations around it. And all that becomes part of the on-device data, right? Even within the site itself where you are going to make the purchase, right? If you are trying to understand or play around with the filters in terms of what kind of CPU, GPU, right, different cards that you want, and you are, say, you started with a specific search, combination of specific search keywords, and then you are then going through the filters to try to see which of the models available on the website are very close to what you are looking for. All that also become pieces of information. So even if, say, you are an e-commerce company and obviously or not obviously, but you do not have a collaboration with the device manufacturers, so you may not have access to on-device data, or the customer may have turned their privacy settings and all, you can still use the data as it gets generated when the customer is interacting, right, with your website to personalize the nudge. And again, kind of go back to my point I was making earlier, that it's a very expensive proposition, building capability in real time, as you can imagine now with this use case. So the cost benefit analysis is really important. But assuming that you have it, there is this algorithm in which Gen AI will be a part, but there will be other underlying algorithms can come together to not only pick on the data trail that you leave while you search, build on it, right, and start helping you actually in your buying process exactly like a person would, but not like the irritating chat bots that you have. Ask me, and then after asking you will say sorry I cannot help, and I will add basically connect you to a selling associate, and then they basically start the sales process after asking tons of information and all, which kind of is irritating for many, right? But what we can do is, leveraging that data trail of real-time interactions, you can actually build something that can aid in real time and actually get the customer a product without worrying about who they are, what's their phone number, date of birth, address, blah blah blah, right? Without the pressure to meet a quota or anything. Actually help just with the product, just with that specific product. And imagine, like, you are on the fence trying to understand what should I buy it, what should I buy, and then you get something proposed very close to what you have and more specs on the configuration. For example, the GPU that you were looking for is not available in this specific combination, like memory of say 64 gigabytes, but this GPU is known to perform better, right? And then There are certain number of customers who have bought it, right? And based on some of your buying patterns, like we see that you bought this game and this specific configuration kind of works really well when you are a gamer and you are working on you are basically playing this specific game. Just a made up example, but you see where it's coming. That nudge doesn't need to be a sales pitch always, but it can be more information, more help about what you are looking for. Now, this example, I think the applicability is very much in the e-commerce space, but then if you think about off brick and mortar space, imagine if you could have some significant amount of this kind of data trail before a person walks into a car dealership, right? You can have basically a salesperson kind of ready to help them in a very specific customized way, so they know exactly what kind of nudge needs to be given to that specific customer. Based on the data trail, there would be a nudge kind of already pre-packaged and presented to the salesperson, as in like these are the aspects you need to touch upon. And this is just one example. Again, like I said, mostly big ticket items would be good candidates for this kind of extreme personalization of nudges, because it's going to be costly in terms of the infrastructure investment. The examples that I gave, one element that I kind of left out, as I mentioned, because of privacy issues, was on-device data. But if you go back to the laptop use case, and if you imagine the on-device data, just imagine the kind of information that you can add, and that then everything becomes much more personalized, right? So you do not have just the filtering data, right? The data filter like GPU, CPUs and configuration, but you also know what other models were being looked at. Okay, so the customer was at on the Best Buy website, right? Perhaps a quick search will kind of show that whether there is a configuration with the same specs that the customer is looking for available there. If it is, how can you nudge the customer to consider an option available on your website in real time, right? What are the other PDFs that the customer has downloaded? What are some of the tech forums, analyst forums, the review forums that the customer has viewed? And within a matter of seconds, try to extract some specifics there, maybe quote them in the interaction with the customer to build that credibility so that the customer accepts the nudge. But that obviously, as you can imagine, will happen if you have access to the on-device data. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow.